And so my name is David Chen. Um, Today we have Benny Chen and myself on the call. Again, thank you, Stephen. Thank you, SkyPoint Agency, for allowing us the platform and giving us the opportunity to come on here to share with you guys. And hopefully there'll be some good takeaways. We encourage you guys to take some notes. Benny and I are going to be sharing with you guys some of the things that we've been able to experience ourselves, and just to kind of give back to you guys and for some of those new agents, and even agents who's been here for a little period of time, trying to find a way to push through and stay consistent, and being able to, we talk about this all the time, being able to continue to push through and stay in the business. That's most important, right? That's most important. So without further ado, Benny, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Awesome, awesome. So, hey man, first of all, congratulations for you guys. For those of you guys don't know, Benny Chen he's a stud, right? I'll let him tell you guys, his backstory and everything. But Benny, in the month of June, was the #1 producer for the SkyPoint Agency. So props, big ups, Benny. Very, 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 very happy for you. Very proud of you, man, for that accomplishment.
Thanks, man. So yeah, just a quick background of my story. I don't really like to talk too much of the background and live too much in the past, but I've dabbled in a handful of industries and different sales positions, leadership roles, and I found myself wanting to do something a little bit different, right? And just kind of own my own business, operate, and make my own schedule. And so far, I think as of last month, I would say, or maybe even June of this year, it's been about 2 years that I've been, on the same, kind of, grind and just, the day to day of what we all do every day, right? So, but thanks to Steven, actually, for, everything that he's done for us, right? I mean, just looking back at like last month, whether it's #1, 2, 3, 4, 5, for me, it really doesn't matter, because now I'm just kind of focused on this upcoming month and what we're, going to be able to potentially do for Q3, so that's kind of where I'm at right now.
100%, 100%. And see, guys, this is what we're going to talk about today is mindset, right? We always, hear about mindset and what is mindset? What is the definition of mindset, right? And Benny is the perfect example of what positive mindset consists of, right? We always talk about not being too high, not being too low, and staying even keel, right? And, he has such a great attitude and positive mindset. And that's what, is key enabling, Benny and myself and some of the other guys who has been here for a little while and found success. So again, Benny, you came on board, just to kind of touch on it a little bit. I know you say you don't want to focus too much on past, and you're more about present and moving forward, which is awesome, right? When did you come on board, and when did you join us, and how did you hear about FFL?
It was like about in I'd say like 2021. Obviously, we've known each other in the past before the insurance industry, so we stayed connected, right? And through conversations, you kind of updated me on what you've been doing, what you've been having success with, and piqued my interest, right? And then through a handful of conversations, it just kind of caught my interest. Say, hey, let's give it a go, and let's really see what happens, and that's kind of really how I found myself in this.
Yeah, awesome. I still remember those conversations like it was yesterday, and kind of same thing for me. I've been honored and blessed to know Stephen for quite some time, previous in other arenas, and same thing. I had conversations with Stephen. I was seeing all the success he was having, and just kind of piqued my interest as well, as far as finding out more information about, getting to know more about the insurance industry, how he got to where he is, and one conversation led to another conversation, and the rest of this history. But yeah, so I myself, I came on board December of 2020. In 2021, I was, with the leadership of Stephen and guidance and everything. I was able to protect close to 350 families, and then last year, kind of switch gears and focus a little bit more on building side, and was fortunate to help just under 280 families. And Benny, I know last year you had a tremendous year as well. I think I want to say it was like almost 275 families. So kudos to you for for that as well. That's big ups. Congrats on that. So guys, again, today we're going to be talking about three main things, and we're going to just dive into these 3 points. So Benny and I have been here, 2 going on 3 years, and let's just be completely honest, right? So with what we do, it's not rocket science, it's not hard, but it is hard work. And as we all know, there's a lot of people who come and go, right? A lot of people who came on around the same time as us, Benny, as I'm sure we still know all those people. And unfortunately, some of them, haven't been able to stay around, and they kind of fell off for whatever reason, right? And this happens. So we wanted to kind of talk about that today with you guys. I know there's some, veteran agents on here, some new agents as well, to kind of just let you guys know, we're just gonna basically peel open the onions and let you guys see what's inside and what we went through, all the nitty gritty and the things that we have to go through. So first of all, mindset, Benny. Obviously mindset again is defined as a habitual or characteristic mental attitude towards something that someone has, right? That how they're going to interpret and respond to something, right? It's also established set of attitudes that one has towards something, right? We all know, and we always say this all the time: mindset. But Benny, now that you've been here, 2+ years, what do you think? Why is mindset so important, and what is it that you do to maintain a positive mindset and to be able to kind of get you through the daily grind like you talked about? Because it is a grind, right? And it is a grind.
Yeah, as far as mindset, I think that's going to be the most important thing, in what we currently do as far as the day to day, and just getting through each day, each week, and each month. We're gonna have good days, and some we're gonna have not so good days, and some's gonna have bad days. So it's important to have that good mindset to just kind of push through, because there's a lot of stuff in the business that if you don't have the mindset early on, but if you have the skills to kind of get it done, I think if the mindset's lacking, you're not going to be able to reach your fullest potential. And going back to what you mentioned earlier, as far as like starting from where it was about maybe 2 years ago, I think maybe what was it? I think it was actually the 4th, when I had sold one of my first several policies. I had only one appointment, and you had told me, we don't do that. We don't just drive out for just one appointment. But that's how bad I was. I had only had one appointment. I drove over an hour to see them, and I helped both the husband and wife. And a week or 2 weeks later, they canceled and charged back. Right? I could easily just quit there. I could have quit, and I could have not made that drive. I could have not helped them out. Right? But it's just going through that. I wanted to make the mistakes quickly. I wanted to go through the ups, go through the downs very quickly, and I feel like that's kind of what prepared me for where I'm currently at now and where I'm potentially going to get to. But as far as like what I do on a daily basis to kind of help me stay in that positive mindset, it's everything that is completely insurance, like not related to insurance. Maybe just drinking a gallon of water, per day. Maybe just having a 10-minute, couple 10-minute walks, like in between like presentations, or if I have a no sale, I'm taking a quick 10-minute walk, or doing something that's not related to insurance to kind of free up my mind, stay active, and that's what's really been working for me.
Absolutely. And I still remember that instance that you brought up, right? And myself included, we all go through that, right? So you hear oftentimes, the good side of the business, right? When, of course, when we're able to, and we have that, we're blessed to be able to help that family. But what comes along with the territory is, you hear, Sean Mike talks about all the time. You have to remember 30% of the business that you write just are not going to stay on the books, and it's completely out of your control, right? So 10 policies, you have to know that probably 2 or 3 of those are probably going to fall off. right? And you cannot allow that to deter you from what it is that you're trying to do. And you cannot allow that to affect your mindset, right? Benny, you talked about it earlier. You drove out there, you did what you had to do. Again, at all cost, at any cost to help families, right? We hear this all the time, right? You do what it takes to get the job done, right? And you did that. And then again, you were able to help them, but unfortunately, for whatever reason, they decided that to cancel, which is fine. It's going to happen. But again, we continue consistency, right? You could just keep writing business over, and then it won't even be it won't even be an issue. You won't even feel it, right? So yeah, exactly, guys. Sometimes when it comes to mindset, it's probably complete. It doesn't really have anything to do with insurance at all, or what it is that you're doing, no matter if it's insurance, construction, working corporate, whatever the case may be. For me, mindset, Benny, is having some type of set thought process, right? And it could be something like you said, in between appointments, doing this. For me, it's waking up at a specific time, listening to some podcasts or motivational stuff on YouTube to kind of keep my brain right, keep my brain fresh, and kind of have a calendar in front of me, to-do list, if you will, on what it is that I need to accomplish for that day, right? And then approaching it in the right mindset, in the right attitude, with the right attitude. You always hear, glasses either half full or half empty, right? And we like to think the glass is half full, right? Meaning that we want to look on the positive side rather than looking at it from the negative side, right? So there's 4 types of mindset, guys. Those 4 types of mindset is growth mindset, positive mindset, entrepreneurial mindset, and a challenge mindset. Benny, tell us what you think as far as from a growth standpoint. What is it that you focus on, and how do you, keep in that form?
Well, specifically as far as growth mindset, for me, it's easy. It's just, regardless of what I've done or, what I've currently done, there's always something more. The ceiling just gets pushed further and further out, right? And there's always something greater that you can kind of continue to reach for, right? Just because you've reached a certain point, one time, or if you've done it once, it doesn't mean you have arrived or you've accomplished it all. There's still something that you can still kind of, overextend, kind of overexert, stretch yourself, reach that next goal. It prepares yourself to get to that next specific level. So you got to put yourself in that uncomfortable situation to kind of keep going.
Absolutely. And again, that's the whole growth mindset, not staying status quo, but pushing through and always thinking, how can I continue to grow? How can I continue to be better? How can I challenge myself? Which is, one of the things that we're going to talk about as well, is to how do we always just not be content and comfortable with where we're at, whether it's you protected 10 families, 15, 20 families, or 30, 40 families a month. How do we find ways to continue to grow, to better ourselves, and of course, to do better for sure. Again, being positive, that sometimes is so hard, right? It's so hard for all of us, myself included, and I'm sure Ben, you can touch on this as well, because of all the things that we do encounter. Whether it's dialing on the phones and with nobody picking up, or you get people on the phone that's unhappy, and they're going to throw you the kitchen sink and throw you some F-bombs or whatever the case may be, right? How do you stay positive in those type of situations, and when you're having those type of days?
I mean, that's really going to happen, right? Like, it happened earlier, and it's probably going to happen later or tomorrow, right? But I think at this point in the game, I think everyone, whether you're just starting off or you've been doing it for a while, you got to understand that everyone we're speaking to every day, they've requested information somehow, somewhere, right? So it's not like we're intruding in their space. We're simply just trying to fill an order. We're trying to help them out, figure out how we can potentially help them, if we can even help them. And there's going to be some people, that are simply going to be pissed off at life. They're not going to be happy. They're not going to be nice. They're not going to be welcoming. And that's it. You just got to understand that, right? And so for me, it's like that. I just simply see it like that. It's going to happen. They're going to hang up. They're going to cuss you out. But beyond all that, you got to come with the mindset, what like, hey, even though they're like that, even though that happened, what can I personally do to still try to maybe not negate the situation, but see how I can kind of go around that to still get them to understand where I'm coming from to help them out, right? Like there's really no other way to do that. I don't really try to complicate it to where it's like, oh, like I'm having a bad day, they hung up on me or they cussed me out. It's just like, yeah, I'm moving on to the next. But I also still want to kind of challenge myself, like, hey, well, they hung up, they cussed me out because it is kind of my fault. What can I control? What are the controllable factors on my end? And how can I just kind of get better and move on, from that one?
Perfect, perfect. 100% agree. See, guys, listen to these things that Benny and I are sharing with you guys, right? Because these are things that you guys encounter as well, right? So exactly what Benny just mentioned. At the end of the day, guys, if you have the right attitude, mindset towards what it is that we're doing on a daily basis, because again, these people did fill out a request at one point, and whether it's from this platform, from that platform, whatever the case may be. And sometimes we talk about this too, right? Benny's like, perhaps we caught them at the wrong time, or we called them at the wrong time, or they're having a bad day, or that time of the month, whatever the case may be. And I think you can attest to this as well. How many times have we tried to get someone on the phone, they're rude, or they're like you said, they're difficult, but when you actually meet them in person, they're the nicest people in the world. Like
Yep.
they tell you the whole life story. Sometimes we don't want
Yeah.
to hear that, but they serve you food, and they invite you to certain things. And we're not trying to talk about that, but the thing, guys, the things that you guys got to remember is, don't take it personal. Check the emotional. Put the emotional side of this. Put that aside, and don't take things personal, like Benny mentioned. And always look yourself in the mirror. What could you have done? What could I have done differently to see a different type of outcome in that type of situation, right? I know we didn't talk about this earlier, but I think a lot of people, or at least Benny, when you and I first started, everything was pretty much face to face, right? We dial our leads, we set our appointments, and we want to make sure we hit our appointments, and we dial until the appointment goals is met, right? We don't want to talk too much about that, but 30 appointments a week, you hopefully sit on 20 and you close 10, or you help 10 families, right? But trying to dial to get 30 appointments, that's the tough part, right? That's the mindset, that's the consistency, that's all that right there, right? But yeah, and now most people are doing telesales. Talk to us, Benny, a little bit, because I know you're 100% telesales. When you made that transition, I'm still doing hybrid. Like, I still run face to face, and then of course I do virtual stuff as well. How difficult is it, Benny, in that space, that you found that's might be a little bit different from when you're doing face to face and now doing completely 100% remote, in terms of mindset, staying positive, and all that? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think as far as the transition for me, at least, from face to face to telesales, I wouldn't say I had the easiest transition. Definitely, it was a little bit of a bumpy ride, and still can be. And I think I've kind of witnessed some other agents, on the SkyPoint team. They've made some really good fluid transitions. I just wasn't one of the lucky ones, so I did have to go through a lot to kind of shift my mindset as far as how I was treating it. There's some things I felt like I was doing, like for in home, that worked, because it's in person. The client sees you, you're able to build credibility easier. Over the phone, I feel like that was maybe an error for me that I kind of overlooked in the beginning. So I needed to really slow down, make sure they know who they're speaking with, why I'm reaching out to them. Was it a specific form, or was it something on Facebook, the beneficiary? So I just wasn't taking the time on that, and that was part of the transitional phase that I had to go through. And then obviously, like everyone else, collecting sensitive information, right? That was kind of one of the things that I was kind of wrestling with back and forth in the beginning.
Absolutely. And again, there's always going to be, challenges in whether you're doing this face to face, or if you're doing, complete virtual or remote, right? And, this call is not about, structure or word tracks or things like that at all. But yeah, for sure, 100% what you just said. You know, when we had to make that transition from face to face, you know, having that a little bit easier to build credibility and they can see you versus, you know, it's just really only your voice. And if your voice, for whatever reason, doesn't vibe or doesn't jive with the person you're talking to, it's very, very difficult to move forward and to proceed. And again, in those type of situation, it's being able to sustain and maintain the proper mindset and everything to make sure that we're able to, you know, continue the conversation with the client and to be able to, you know, obviously, you know, find a way to help them. Let's kind of switch gears, Benny. You know, in terms of mindset, obviously we know how crucial that is, you know, and especially in our business, you know, right from the jump, right? Your mindset has to be it has to be completely positive. Your thought process has to be crystal clear. Otherwise, it's going to be very, very difficult. I think you and I both know that, and a lot of us know that, right? Let's switch gears and talk about consistency, right? And whether you're doing this, you know, part-time, when you have time, full-time, consistency is key. Consistency in everything that we do in life is key, right? Let's talk about schedule. Let's talk about leads, and let's talk about work ethics. Let's start with consistency with schedule. Can you kind of share with us, Benny, you know, as far as that goes, what does that look like for you and the importance of that?
Yeah, my schedule is pretty much the same every day. It's anywhere from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. You know, and that's it. I start at 6, I end at 6. I don't work anything later than that. You know, that's my mindset. I've been doing that for the past year or so, and it's worked out for me. I you know, I mean, I know everyone's a little bit different, but if I get a text from a client at 6:05, 6:10, 6:30, I'm technically out of the office. I don't respond until tomorrow. I just will not respond, you know. And so, you know, I've been sticking on that schedule. Like again, it's been working for me. And so, you know, I'm not gonna fix what's broken, you know, or what's not broken.
So is that why I don't get a response back from your text after 6 p.m.?
Exactly. Exactly.
No, all jokes aside, no, guys, that's what it is, right? Establishing your schedule and sticking to it. That's part of it. And that's why Benny has found success. And for me, my schedule, I try to, you know, keep something similar as well, but I'm more kind of all over the place because I do run some face-to-face appointments. So if the client needs to see me after their working hours, of course, I'm past 6, 7, 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m. sometimes. But yeah, but you know, that's obviously, you know, very, very important is to establish a consistent schedule. Again, whether you're, you know, just dabbing into it, you know, finding whatever time you have to try the business or to do the business, or if you're on a part-time situation because you have another full-time job, or if you're all in like Benny and I, you know, this is how we feed our families. This is our livelihood. So we must have and we have to have a consistent schedule. Benny, talk to us about leads, not necessarily the type of leads and or, you know, things like that, right? But what is the importance, Benny, you think is the consistency in, you know, having leads?
Well, let me add something to the schedule real quick,
Yeah.
because you know, I think for me, I've tested a lot of different schedules out on my end the past year, but I like that schedule because it gives you a chance if you're doing completely remote, you can hit, you know, just about every single time zone, you know, at reasonable hours, right? Like, you know, Pacific, you know, Central, Mountain, East Coast, you know, so that's why I do that. That's why I'm very specific because even though it might be 6 Pacific, that's going to be 8 Central, you know, or maybe 9 East Coast. So that's why I do that.
That's
Okay.
great. Yeah, exactly. You know, that's key, guys, especially if you guys are doing telesales or remotely, right, or virtual sales. Because when you have that set consistent schedule, if you start at this time early, because we're here on the West Coast, it allows you to hit all the different time zones. You know, now your territory is not just your local backyard or the state that you're in. You're able to help families throughout the country, right? It just opens up so many more opportunities that allows you to do that. And then once you have that set schedule and that consistent schedule, like Benny talked about, you know, that's going to be extremely helpful, extremely helpful. So leads. right? We hear this all the time. And we get this from Stephen. Consistent lead flow leads to consistent cash flow. And we all know that the bread and butter of our business is leads. And if you don't have leads, you're not going to survive. So talk to us, Benny, about having consistency in your lead flow and what that means, the importance of that, and how that's helped you and what it is that you're doing in your business.
Yeah, so I mean, as far as being consistent with leads, I mean, it's helped me just basically get enough people to talk to, right? If I have leads, people that are requesting information, doesn't matter if it's final expense or some type of mortgage protection. People are actively looking for something, right? So I can kind of refill my pipeline, get appointments, get presentations. Some will get approved and some will buy and some won't, and that's it. So like, for example, like if I, it doesn't matter if I help families, like 5 families, like last week, or 10 families. If I stop that lead flow, then I won't be able to help families anymore. So it's part of the process, it's part of the system too. And I think, jumping real quick back to mindset is that, now that I've been in 2 years, it's really looking at it like a business. You're a business operator. So in order to be a good business operator, you need to do your marketing, which is basically acquiring the leads. Someone else has already marketed those leads, they send it to us because we provide them those marketing dollars, and we basically just have to call them and book appointments or see them in person, right? If we don't do that, then it's everything basically just shuts off and stops.
Yeah, exactly, right. That continue to make sure that pipeline is filled with consistent lead flow, which gives us the opportunity to have different people to talk to, right? One of the biggest things here at FFL is we don't have to rely on or sell to Uncle Bob or Aunt Susie, and we don't have to bother families, and because we have people that we can talk to on a consistent basis. So again, having lead flow, consistent lead flow is super important. Let's talk about work ethics, Benny, because I think we all know everything all kind of ties together, guys, from mindset to scheduling to leads and all of that. But none of that really matters unless you have consistency in your work ethics, right? For me, guys, work ethics is something either you have or you don't have, and if you don't have it, you're going to need to find a way to get it, right? Some people work hard. A lot of people work extremely hard, like Benny. There's going to be days where we just might quite not have it. Whether it's your insurance or your doctor, your professional athlete, whatever the case may be, you're going to have those days where you feel like, oh man, this is not the day. Or if you look out the window and the weather's not the best, and whatever the case may be, right? But work ethics, everything starts within, right? Fortunately, I was kind of brought up in a way, by my family, by my parents, to always have strong work ethics, meaning that, I know this is what's going to take to get the job done. I know I need to, push myself, continue to get better, and go, above and beyond, or go the extra mile and work hard for my family, right? So that's super important. Benny, what do you think as far as work ethics from a consistent standpoint? What does that look like for you?
I mean, it's just basically, you're just running through a wall every day, pushing yourself again, just overextending and just trying to get to that next level yourself, whatever it looks like, however it looks like, wherever it is, you just got to continue to just be disciplined, that's it.
That's the key word right there, discipline, right? Discipline tying in with, mindset, tying in with consistency, though on the days where things are not going well on the phones, right? On the days where you're getting no sales, on those negative type days, which it's going to happen, how do we continue to, have that strong work ethic mind and be able to push forward and keep pushing through, like you said, continue to run through that wall and just that, almost like that no give up, never give up type of mentality. Benny, I know you're big on like working out and staying fit and all of that. does that kind of tie into as far as your work ethics? And I know you're big on certain podcast speakers and motivational speakers, in that field. Talk to us a little bit about that, because you've helped me understand some of that as well. You pointed me in that area, which I feel like it's helped tremendously.
Yeah, I think as far as like, I mean, for me personally, what has helped me continue to maintain a certain level of work ethic is, going to the gym and just being active, doing little things like that. I mean, I feel like stacking wins outside of insurance, again, just anything outside of insurance related, gallon of water per day, just hitting the gym on the certain days that I plug into my calendar. Like everything's in my calendar. Like if that's the time I'm going, that's the time I'm gonna go. I'm not gonna miss it. If that's the time I'm dialed, that's the time I'm going to dial, right? So I'm just staying consistent with that. And so when I start work the next day, I've already had wins that I stacked up, just like how you mentioned. You get up at a certain time, you have your daily morning habit or ritual that you go to, and those are little wins you're stacking. So when you start the day, you're talking with clients or appointments and seeing families, you already feel good because you already accomplished like a handful of things already, as opposed to someone else that just doesn't. Maybe they do stack those wins, but they don't look at them as wins. I look at them as wins. Like, hey, I did this today, and then I'm going into this. But um, yeah, I mean, those are things that we all are gonna face and have to eventually, just kind of overcome.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. You hit the nail right on the head there. To kind of wrap up regarding consistency, right? Again, consistency with your schedule, we talked about that. Consistency with your lead flow, we talked about that. And then the consistency in your work ethics. What are some of the challenges, Benny, you think that we face every single day, when it comes to consistency, and how do we try to like rise above that? And what are the keys, or what do you do, to rise above, those type of situations?
So I think as far as challenges, I mean, I think we all gonna have that little voice in our head that tells us like, no, don't do it. Don't roll out of bed. Don't make that call. Yeah, you said you're gonna stay until like 4 or 5 and dial and try to help some families out. But then you don't do it, right? I think for me, it's the that does happen, and I think it happens to everyone. It's fairly normal, right? In whatever we do in life. But I think as far as specifically insurance related, as far as challenges and how I try to maintain consistency, is knowing that what I'm doing works, right? There's a system that I'm going through daily, weekly. We basically just get leads. We get appointments, or we're speaking with them, doing a presentation. We help them out, or we don't help them out. We get referrals and leads, and then we just continue to rinse and repeat. That's pretty much it. End of the day, I can't control whether they all get approved, right? Because of health conditions and medications. End of the day, I can't control whether, maybe they got something already and I just can't break through and they got the best coverage already. There's nothing I can do there. And I go to sleep okay. I did everything I could. And even if I go 2 3 days with not helping a single family, if I run through everything correctly and I go through the checklist, did I get my leads? Did I get my appointment target? Did I go through my presentations? Did I not cut any corners? And if I did, then I'm okay with it. That's kind of how I look at like maintaining consistency through those challenges when it comes to insurance.
100%, 100%. Yeah, guys, we don't want to sound like a broken record or anything, but these are the things that, that Benny and I, we do, and which help us get to where we are today and continue to have success or find success. And of course, we're always going to continue to raise the bar and push the needle. Benny, let's talk a little bit about the dialing, because we'll talk about that, right? Oftentimes, let's just face it, nobody likes to dial, right? Whether you're dialing to set appointments, or if you're dialing to try to do a one call close, if you're doing telesales, right? Because of all the things that comes along with that, right? For me, right, if I'm trying to set appointments, or if I need to hit X amount of presentations, we don't stop until we hit that, right? Whether it's 5 appointments, 10 appointments, 30 appointments, or 5 presentations, whatever the case may be, the job doesn't stop until we hit that, right? talk to us about the importance of that and being able to kind of, keep that in the forefront. And, when you're not quite there yet and you're looking at the clock and then you almost want to just say stop or you want to quit for whatever reason, right? Talk to us about that. In those type of situations, those type of moments, in those type of days, like what is it that you do? I know what I do, but what is it that you do that can kind of help, people to kind of understand and push forward?
I just refer back to the math, right? Like if I'm, reverse engineering, right? Like numbers, right? So if it's like my daily appointment target that I'm just, super focused on not missing, for me, it's about, I like to be around 12. I think that's a good number for what I'm currently doing. Um, and then my goal is like out of those 12, I'm probably going to safely assume that I'll probably, speak with about maybe 6 of those, right? And then, so that's about 50%. And then from that 6, I'd say about maybe anywhere between, uh, I mean, and everyone's different, but I'll just say for me, it could be anywhere between maybe 30%. So maybe about two families, right? So if I go based on that, which has been pretty consistent, um, then it's like, okay, then if I look at daily, that would be 2 families. 1 week, that would be about hopefully 10. 1 month, that would be 40. Even if I fall short, if I help 30 families, I'll still be okay with it, right? So that's kind of how I look at it. Like, hey, sometimes there's going to be days where you might not help any families, but as long as you know your numbers and you're able to understand why you're doing it, it's going to work out end of the week or end of the month.
Exactly, right. Exactly. You hear this all the time. Stack the numbers, stack the deck in your favor, right? Have enough leads, have enough people to talk to, make enough phone calls, right? Have enough presentations, and the numbers will always work itself out, right? We hear this all the time. And you got to be able to keep that in the forefront. And when things are not going well, or when the day's not your day, but again, keeping that in the forefront and knowing your numbers, knowing what it is you need to do to get there, and no ifs and no ifs and or buts, and you don't stop until that goal is met, right? Until that goal is met. Benny, again, we talked about this earlier, right from the start. We've been fortunate to still be here 2.5, 3 years in. Unfortunately, some people have left the business. Some of them, we are colleagues, close friends, and longevity in this business is like the biggest thing, right? What do you think for you now that you're 2.5 years in, from a longevity standpoint? What do you think has gotten you to where you are, and what is it that you think are the key things that we need to continue to do and focus on so we have longevity? So, another 2.5, 3 years from now, we can still have this conversation.
Yeah, I think it's just no matter what stage we're in, we just can't forget about the basics and the fundamentals, right, of the business, right? Like acquiring leads, having good lead flow, right? And getting enough presentations in. I think that's going to be the basics and fundamentals of the business here, right? You can't lose focus of that no matter what you've done or what you've already experienced in the past. You guys still continue doing that. You can't let loose of that. And I think I mentioned to you already too, like the past year, it's once you start getting a good grasp of the business of what to do, from the the producer's end, is you got to start focusing on long-term and sustainability. I'll just give you an example. Like, obviously, like every new agent has a different story when they first get started. Sometimes we have carriers that pay us within the next day or 24, 48 hours. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, there was times where I was in the field and I would just submit an app to submit an app, and I would think it was a win. But now I'm like hesitant on some people I speak with. Should I really submit it? Is it really the best thing to do? Because what if it's just a chargeback, right? So that's kind of long-term thinking, forward thinking, taking care of your business and making sure that you're not submitting, just to submit. We want to make sure it's always thinking long-term and sustainability.
100%. We talk about this many, many times. I think this is something we don't hear as much, or especially for new agents, it might kind of be foreign to you in the beginning. But like Benny said, once you have a good foothold on the business and you understand you've kind of gone through the first 90 days, or you're 6 months in, or coming up on that 1 year anniversary, and you're trying to find a way to obviously continue to get better and kind of push through and get to that next stage or that next level. These are all things that that's going to be super, super key and important to be able to sustain and have longevity, right? And one thing, like Benny mentioned, don't just submit just to submit, guys, right? Submit is one thing, of course. Is it going to get issued? And that's and is, again, to kind of go back on that, right? Does the client really have a true need? And it's our job to identify what that need is, and then of course provide the absolute best solution for that need. And if you do that, then everything should work out. But again, some just aren't going to work out. It is what it is, right? You don't want to submit bad business just to, submit just to submit, like Benny mentioned. And you want to make sure that you manage your book of business, the people that you help, right? So you can strengthen your persistency. So, again, knowing that there's going to be people who cancel, but how do we, what do we do to try to, eliminate that or to cut that as much as we can? And then in terms of, profitability, right? And I think, I know I've experienced this, and I think a lot of new agents probably go through this as well. And, talk on this, Benny, is, when we start to see those Amerigo deposits, right? And we do have, dollar signs coming into our bank account, there's been times where like, I feel like, okay, I have a little bit of money. I can maybe do this. I can maybe do that. Talk about recognizing that and not spending money that possibly is not yours, right? Because we know that's kind of happened to some people that came on board, some of the recruits, which of course leads to something that none of us want, which is, roll up debt, right? So talk a little bit about that when you are helping and you are submitting and you're seeing deposits coming into your bank account, but then also knowing and remembering that that money may not be yours, and not to, spend it on things that you don't need to be spending it on.
Yeah, when I see deposits come in, I just view it as more like a just like I don't know, like a tool or a resource, right? To put in more to the business, right? To fuel the fire, to kind of get it to grow even more, So, um, I don't really look at it as like a payday, like that so much, because like you mentioned, right? It's not technically our money until it goes through the entire 9 months for most carriers, So I just look at it as a way to just kind of, hey, let's move it quickly and let's put it back into the business. That way we can flip it and continue to just, keep things moving along. And I think as far as like deposits too, I think one thing too, as we're speaking about like longevity for new agents, is that it's important that once they get to the stage of like, investing in their own selves and their own business, like whether it's leads or marketing or whatever it is, they have to get to a point where they're unemotional about it, right? They're just doing it to do it, like, oh, cool, my car got charged, but it's going to help me. It's going to help the business. It's going to help us grow, it's going to move us to where we want to eventually get to, right? I think the other thing too, past that, not getting emotional about it, is you have to understand that, not all carriers sometimes will pay us within a day or 2 days or 3 days. Sometimes it might be post dated because of fixed incomes or Social Security, right? You have to be able and to learn how to float some money around sometimes. I think that's really important. And it's okay. You're eventually going to get paid from the carriers. You just got to write more business. You got to write more business and not depend on what's eventually going to come in.
100%, 100% exactly. And those are things that sometimes doesn't get talked about enough, especially for new agents. And once they are actually writing business or helping families, and they see this money come in, then the next thing you know, they're not leveraging that in the right way to continue to grow and to actually put back in the business to keep things going. And then once those chargeback hit, then all of a sudden, like you're out of the game. And oftentimes we see that too much, right? And now knowing what we know, and then especially with the new agents that we're helping, we hone in on that. We touched on that, how to be sustainable and how to continue to have profitability so you can keep the business moving forward, right? Any before we talk about like wrapping things up, do you guys have any questions at all for either Benny or myself, or anything feel free to drop it in the Q&A. I do see a couple of questions here, which we'll hit on in just a minute. But if you have any questions, feel free to drop it in the Q&A, and Benny and I will do our best to answer those for you. Benny, to kind of wrap things up, best practices, things to focus on, pitfalls to avoid, and one thing we'll close is with how to prevent burnouts, right? Because whether it's insurance or whether it's this or that, there's going to be times you're going to feel like you're burnt out, right? So we'll talk about that at the very end to wrap things up. But anything as far as like the things we talked about, best practices, things to focus on, things not to focus on, pitfalls to avoid.
Best practices is just stay plugged in. SkyPoint has a great setup here. There's weekly calls. Stay plugged in. Be a student of the game. It doesn't matter what you've done last month, last week. As long as you continue to push things forward and you keep moving the ceiling, and you have that student mindset, you're going to be fine. It doesn't matter where you're at in the business. You just continue to be a student. I think you're going to be good.
I totally agree. In the very beginning, both you and myself, you're great at this, right? It's being a sponge and absorbing everything. And like you said, staying plugged in, right? There's so much resources across the board within FFL. There's no question, we know, not to be biased, but SkyPoint Agency is the best agency in the whole company. And there's so much that Stephen and the staff does for us, whether it's from, resources of learning, training, things of that nature, and continue to stay plugged in and stay dialed into what it is that we're doing. And knowing that we're all just one big family and we're all here to help and support each other. So whatever it is that, Benny or myself or any of us can do here to help you guys, no matter where, where you're at in the business, trying to get through your first 90 days or 6 months in, a year in, whatever the case may be, we're here for you, right? We all want to see everybody win. So yeah, those are the things that Benny and I have always continued to focus on, and we'll continue to do that. But don't be afraid to reach out, right? Put the pride aside, don't think that you know it all, you have to know it all. And, you've done things this way and you're going to continue, right? That's not the right mindset, right? That's not the growth mindset. That's not the positive mindset, right? And if you do that and you continue to stay plugged in, like Benny mentioned, stay connected, the FFL home office, live dials every single day, the training, all of that, reaching out to people that are where you want to be, right? If you're 5-10 families a month and you want to get to 20, right? You want to reach out to someone who's already done it, has been down that road, that can kind of guide you and help you get to where you want to go, right? Pitfalls, Benny. Well, pitfalls. Talk a little bit about that real quick.
Pitfalls is just just that that little voice in the back of your head, right? Just try to avoid that, right? If you avoid that voice, all that negativity, if you're around other, I don't know, like colleagues, other agents, maybe it's not working out for them and they just have a really not so good mindset, I guess, right? You got to shut that out and you got to stay away from it. That's too contagious. Stay locked in, stay tunnel vision, and just focus what's in front of you and what you can actually control, right? But all that other stuff is just all extra noise.
Yeah, 100%. Tunnel vision, staying locked in. We hear this and we talk about this all the time amongst ourselves and with our team. Because it's very easy to get distracted. It's very easy to get discouraged, or it's hard to maintain and keep that motivation day in, day out, week in, week out, month in, month out, right? So those are definitely the things, and surround yourself in the right environment, that right atmosphere, the right people to be around. That's I think is key, right? Especially if you're new in the game, especially if you have hard time staying motivated by yourself. Surround yourself with like-minded people that's going to push you, encourage you, and get you to where you want to be for sure. A few questions, and then I guess before we do that, avoiding burnout, because that can easily happen in this business. Real quick, 30 seconds, Benny. What is it that you see, or what do you think for new agents who might be going through or might be experiencing some burnout? How do we go through that, and how do we try to not get burnt out?
I'd say just don't forget about your why, just stay locked in and focused on your why, number one. And number two, in the beginning, you gotta understand that you're gonna be working like a mad woman or a madman, and it's not always gonna be like that. And in the beginning, you want to put in as much hours as possible so you can, kind of become a little bit more efficient at what you're doing or become a little bit better, right? Hopefully. And then later on, it should get a little bit easier and you could kind of peel back a little bit as far as like, overworking yourself. But in the beginning, I highly recommend to work as much as possible. Work 7 days, a week for the first like 2 3 months if you need to, so you can figure out if this is going to be for you, so you can go through more mistakes, go through more learning, right? Have more conversations with the team here, and then eventually you'll be like, hey, you know what, maybe I can do this, maybe I can cut back on x amount of hours, because you've already got to a certain level to where you can be a little bit more consistent like that.
100%, right? That's the whole thing we talk about all the time, is working hard, but at the same time working smart. And how do you find the right balance? And like Benny mentioned, and I'll tell all you guys this, especially if you're new or trying to push through, first 6 months or 9 months, or whatever the case may be, you got to be able to identify that. You got to be able to identify that and say, hey, I'm new. I'm willing to go through the struggles. I'm willing to grind. I'm going to learn. I'm going to be a student of the game. I'm going to learn. I'm going to learn from my mistake, but it's going to ultimately help me get better and get to where I want to be. And if you identify that, right, and you stay locked in and consistent with that, you're going to get to where you're going to get to. You're going to be able to get to where you want to get to. There's a couple of questions I see on here, so we'll address this. We'll address those right now. And again, any other additional questions, feel free to drop it in the Q&A. First question, what do you guys do to strengthen your persistency so clients don't cancel as much? Benny, you take that one first.
Yeah, I think as far as for me, as far as if it's a remote call, I'm going over with them clearly what they got approved for today, right? That's just basic information like what everyone already knows: the name of the carrier, the protection amount, is it term, is it permanent, whole life, whatever. What's the monthly premium? What's the effective date? What's the future draft? How many days are they going to expect to receive like some type of packet or document in the mail? And that's pretty much it. And then also, if they don't receive it within that time, or whether they're keeping track or not, they can reach out to me, call, text, email, whatever. But if I don't answer, leave me a voicemail. I usually just say exactly like that. But I make sure that I repeat all that to them. They either write it down or I'll text it, email, make sure they don't have any questions from there. And as soon as they say they don't have any questions, that's when I would basically just end the call from there. And sometimes I do have clients that call me back and say, hey, you know what? I still didn't receive anything yet. I say, hey, no worries. Thanks for reaching out. Let me take a look into this for you. I'll get right back to you. Send an email out to the carrier, give them a call, and I'll get right back to the client. So that's actually been working pretty well for me, because I had some clients where they've, unintentionally canceled because they didn't receive anything, right? Or they thought they didn't receive anything, right? So I just try to really take my time on that post-sale, the process.
Yeah, we have similar system in place for that, right? So I'm not gonna, repeat that. But for me, I take it a little bit step further, right? Remember, the things that we do, it's very emotional, right? It's emotional transaction. So I remind them, hey, I'm your insurance guy, right? If and when that time comes, know that I'm going to be the liaison between your family and the insurance company, and you have me for life. That's exactly what I say, right? That's exactly what I say. And I think people appreciate that. They know that you're going to be there for them, that this is not just a one-time transaction. This is not something that's just transactional. And I always tell them, I'm here to help you at the front end. I'm also here to help you on the back end. So please do not hesitate to reach out. If you have any questions at all, once you receive your policy, I'm actually going to circle back with you probably within a week or so from now, just to make sure you got it. But of course, in the meantime, if you have anything at all that comes up, right, please, you have my contact. Again, here's everything that we went over, like Benny mentioned: summary, coverage, details, monthly premium, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I really hit home on the emotional side of it, and hopefully, they understand and they appreciate that. That's for me. Those are the things that Benny and I do to kind of make sure we maintain that persistency level and clients don't cancel. to, limit the 30% to like 25 or 20%, right?
Right.
One other question here. How do you keep motivation at such a high level each and every single week? Benny, you first.
Um, yeah, it's just going through the normal day to day, like that's outside of insurance, you mentioned it earlier. I think everyone has their own preference as far as podcasts. There's certain podcasts I like to follow, so that kind of like puts my mindset through like a mental gymnastic. I feel like the mindset's a muscle. We got to continue to work it in a certain way. If you're feeding it negativity, then it's going to be negative. If you feed it positivity and good podcasts that you can relate to, that's going to strengthen your mindset, then you're going to be in a good spot. So podcasts like this, every Monday, this is a good opportunity to put your mindset through that mental gymnastic.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And we talked about this as well earlier. Is identifying what your schedule is going to look like, having the calendar, things like that, right? But I think motivation for me, it starts from within. And if you're not one of those that can stay self-motivated, it's going to be tough, right? But how do you find self-motivation week in, week out, days in, days out, and month out, or whatever the case may be, right? Kind of like what you said, feeding your mind with the right ingredients. So for me, it's also diet and exercise, super important. I know that there's times when I don't eat well or I don't sleep well, and my mind is groggy or I'm fatigued mentally, which leads to fatigue, physically. Then those are the days where, hey, it might be tough to push through, right, or to stay motivated, right? So Stephen talks about all this time. Do you want to feed your body good stuff that can continue to move you forward, or you want to feed your body a bunch of junk that's gonna cause grogginess and fatigue and all that stuff? So those things are important for me, as far as staying motivated. Those are kind of scientific things, but yeah. Any other questions at all, please drop it in the Q&A. If not, again, thank you, Stephen. Thank you, SkyPoint Agency, for allowing Benny and I today to come on and to kind of share with you guys about mindset, consistency, and of course longevity. We hope to see all you guys continue to push forward, and here a year from now, that's the goal. Be here a year from now. Be here a year from now. And again, don't be afraid to reach out.
Oh, looks like there's a couple questions here, David.
Go ahead.
They actually dropped it in the chat.
Oh, got it. Go ahead.
Let's see. So there is, when do you decide to get dialers, people who call leads for you? That's the first one.
That was from Wendy?
Let me see. Give me a second. That was from, looks like it's a Dale Lee.
Oh, it's all good. No worries. It doesn't matter. So I'm going to address that really quick. All right.
Okay.
If you have not been here at least 90 days, don't even ask that question.
Mm-hmm.
Benny, I think you'll agree with me.
Yeah, I think you have to be able to, it shouldn't even, I totally agree with your statement there. You have to be able to operate on your own. You have to be able to go through the highs and lows of no shows and people cussing you out and all that, because if you can't do that yourself consistently at a high level, how do you coach and mentor and train someone else to help be an extension of your business? Because that's really what it is. It's not really like a free getaway ticket, like I'm gonna go on the beach and not work. You're still gonna work, and if anything, you're probably gonna work even harder, but you have to go through certain phases and learning, so that way it can prepare you if that's the route that you're gonna go to potentially do.
Exactly. And actually, I'm sorry if I came off too bold or too direct on that, but actually, I'm going to take that back. If you haven't been here a year, that shouldn't even be anything that crosses your mind, right? Especially if you've not done insurance in the past, and like Benny said, if you haven't done it yourself, you can't teach it to somebody else.
Next question: is there such thing as too much training? For today, this is my second training call, and I still have one more later. I do over 12 weekly.
Kudos, man. That's awesome. For me, you can never say there's too much training or not enough training, or is this too much training. right? Again, this is the mindset, the growth mindset, the challenging mindset. How do you continue to get better, right? What is it that you're doing, or what is it that you're willing to do to continuously improve? Self-improvement. We talk about this all the time, right? Self-growth, self-improvement. How do we not stay status quo? How do we always push the needle? How do we try to, get ahead, right? So for me, it's never, too much training. Been being here 2.5 years, 3 years, I still get a lot of stuff all the time from training calls. If something could be said a little bit differently, done a little bit differently, whatever the case may be, I learn from Benny, I learn from everybody. So for me, no, absolutely not. Anything else, guys? All right. Well, again, thank you, Stephen. Thank you, SkyPoint Agency, for allowing, excuse me, this tells you that we've been talking too much, for the opportunity and the platform to come on today for the Sky's the Limit call. Hopefully you guys, were able to get some nuggets out of this, and, some takeaways that you can start implementing and using in your business. Again, don't forget conference, convention next year. Again, just be a sponge, be a student, and don't forget to reach out, and we'll see you guys at the top.